Hey everybody, it's Mark Pattison, former NFL player, now climbing the 7 summits, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Finding Your Summit, all about people overcoming adversity and finding their way. Okay, look, 7-8 years ago, I had to step into the fear and put a big ass goal out there, and so I decided to start climbing all these crazy mountains around the world. It's been an absolute amazing journey, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I've actually done 6 of the 7. I've actually been on Denali twice. I've been on climbed successfully Kilimanjaro twice, but now it's Mount Everest, the biggest boy on the block, 29,000 plus, and I'm headed over there April 2020, and I'm totally keyed up. And I'm keyed up because I've been doing all this preparation. I train like an absolute bear, and really putting myself in a position of success. I'm going to be climbing with one of the top climbing outfitters in the world. Excited about that. And just the mountain has fascinated me for years, I'm sure like others, but really excited to do so. And so if I can actually pull this thing off, I'd be the first NFL player to do so. And so as we speak today, there's not that many first in the world. So I look forward to tackling that. Okay, so that's one. 2 is I totally appreciate the listen on these different podcasts. I really do. And it's been an amazing journey, as I said, from not just interviewing these people, but being on the other side of the mic and really taking in their incredible stories of doing amazing things. And look, we all need to be inspired. And so if I can help provide and find more people that meet that criteria, all the better. And we all need that motivation, and we all need those words of encouragement that you can make it back relevant to your own situation, and then plow forward in whatever endeavor you are trying to do. Okay, so I appreciate that. And if you want to find out anything that I have going on, you can do so at markpattisonnfl.com. I've got a book out now called Finding Your Summit, go figure. And it is essentially the playbook to what I had learned from my Hall of Fame coaches on how to emerge and do some great things in your life. It doesn't have to be mountain climbing, of course. It can be anything, but it's a plug-in that you take on these different things, these different goals, these different strategies that I've set forth, that they set forth for me. And good things can come from that. Okay. Also on the website, you can find out more about my expedition. Obviously, I'll be going to Mount Everest, and we'll have more information about that coming up. There's an e-learning course, and of course the podcast. And when you go to the podcast, you will find an iTunes tab. And I would be so grateful if you go in and you'd rate and review. Now, it all has to do with visibility, popularity of podcasts, because there's so many podcasts out there today that it's so easy to get lost and like, where's Finding Your Summit? And I really do believe these stories are really amazing and incredible, and can really give a lift to those people who really need it. And even if you don't, we all need to be motivated and inspired by other people to keep going. So if you'd go in and do that, I would be really, really appreciative. Okay? So let's go listen to the pod. It's going to be awesome. Here we go. Hey everybody, it's Mark Pattison back again with another fantastic episode of Finding Your Summit, all about people overcoming adversity and finding their way. And I am broadcasting here live at Squaw Valley during the Spartan World Championships Media Fest. Whew, that's a lot of stuff, right?
That's a summit right there. You got it out.
Yeah, so I am so blessed, and I'm so grateful and humbled at the same time to be in the presence of a guy named Chris Waddell. So first of all, Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here. It's a real community, a family community, it seems like here.
Yeah, so let me just set this up. So yesterday we were told that there's a smoothie coffee place that we can go and get the stuff. And every morning I wake up with my 7 Summit smoothie. And so I was in hopes of finding that somebody could actually make this for me, because I'm here in Tahoe, not in my hometown of Sun Valley.
Right.
And so I showed up, I got the order, and you happened to be in line, and I didn't quite fit the pieces together, but we had a quick exchange.
Quick exchange, right.
And you're super cool, super nice, and you're
trying to figure out where this place was, where the HQ was.
Yeah,
exactly,
you were asking me, right?
Yeah,
and
I think
so
that's what it was.
Yeah. And so anyways, we worked it all out. But anyways, I did see you speak last night, and I learned some amazing things about your story, and it really pulled at my heart. And at the end of the day, I wanted to bring you on the pod. I know this is a bit spontaneous, but you were very grateful with your time.
Sure.
So here we are. And so the first thing, I just want to set this up for the visual of the listener, that Chris Waddell is a very accomplished guy, but his adversity, it's been a life changer, and I would say in all the positive ways, even though we're going to talk about this as some serious adversity. But he was paralyzed in college, skiing, and he's in a wheelchair. And so, unfortunately, it's from the waist down, I guess, if that's a positive way to look at that.
You always want more. You don't want to, you don't want less, and you want more, right? That's the whole idea.
Yeah, but I think the one thing, we'll get into all this, that really stood up for me, it stands out for me right now, is that you've got this bright light about you. And, so it doesn't, again, it's amazing when you see, whether they're beautiful people or ugly people or somebody, whatever that version is in between. But if somebody is standing there with this bright light, it's just shining and glowing, it's just like you go, I want some of that, right? And fortunately, you seem to have that kind of glow about yourself. And so for that, I'm thankful for you being on this pod.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So let's start on that awful day years ago. And so I better understand the accident, like what happened.
Sure. So it was my first day of Christmas vacation. I was ski racing at Middlebury College. I'd gone home to Massachusetts, grew up in Western Mass, hour and a half west of Boston, skied at a place called Berkshire East. So my brother and I, he had just come home for vacation as well. He and I went up to the mountain, took a few runs with some buddies, and in the middle of a turn, my ski popped off. It was just as freak as things go. There was no reason. It was a warm day. It was soft. I fell in the middle of the trail. I didn't hit anything but the ground, but whatever I did, I must have done it in a weird way. And so I broke 2 vertebrae, damaged the spinal cord. And in that moment, I don't remember anything after losing my ski. I was conscious throughout, but I was in shock, so I don't remember any of it. And yes, that was the progression from ski patrol skiing me down the hill to ambulance to the first hospital, helicopter to the second hospital. And eventually they did all the tests. My parents and my brother went to the second hospital waiting room, and the doctor came out and said, your brother's broken his back and he'll never walk again. And it was really traumatic for them, and they cried. And I'm lucky. I have a really very strong family. When they were done crying, my father said, that's the last time we can cry. We have to be strong for Chris. And they really were. And it was about my recovery, and everything was focused on the recovery. And that for me, They let me take charge of what was going on. I don't know if I would have taken charge anyway. I probably would have, but they didn't inject themselves into this is what you need to do. And it was like I was moving forward, and I was worried about the life that I saw around me in the hospital being my life moving forward. So I cried once in the hospital, and I'm not saying that as like I'm so tough or anything. It was mostly just because I was scared that if I let myself go in that direction, that I cut myself off from the greatest power that I had, and that was what would allow me to recover. So I really couldn't go in that direction. Actually, when I was leaving the hospital, head doctor called me into his office, and he said, "You're not ready to leave because you haven't been depressed." Which is perplexing.
Wild, yeah.
But he was worried that I was in denial, much in denial that I wouldn't acknowledge it. And for me, I was like, oh, look, I'll be depressed later, but right now, I need all my energy going into getting better. And it was the most powerful I've ever been. And I think that was because I was so single-mindedly focused on the power of healing myself and doing whatever I could to heal myself.
So in that moment, though, were you still thinking, like, I hear what the doctors are saying, but to me, that's just noise.
Right, sure.
And I am going to walk again? Or were you just like, okay, this is my reality, but I'm going to make the best of this situation?
No, I felt like I'd walk again. Back then, I thought I would walk again. And part of being an athlete is that you do things that other people think are impossible, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, well, this is going to apply to other people, but it's not going to apply to me. And that's the denial part of it, right? That, okay, I'm just going to do what I need to do. But yeah, I felt like I was going to get better. I knew that I would get better. I didn't know what getting better meant until I moved further along and realized that my life was really about having dreams that I could pursue, being healthy, happy, and having dreams that I could go and chase down.
Well, you've chased down a lot of them. You've accomplished a lot of things, which is really cool. So for the audience now, you are a person that goes around the country and you speak to probably the world, and you talk about overcoming adversity and empowerment and all this different stuff. We'll get into that in a minute.
Sure.
But the thing that last night when you were speaking to our group, so again, you and I and a bunch of others were invited to this VIP dinner at Spartan World Championship. Again, a lot of words in there, but they asked you to say, 10, 15 minutes words to us, and you said a lot of things, but the thing that stood out to me, which was really incredible, was really about goals are easy to set when everything is going great. And then you said where it really becomes challenging and meaningful is when everything is against you, like you were laying there in that hospital, and now you're making a goal. I'm going to go do X, Y, or Z, right?
Right, yeah.
I mean, it was incredible. It's really profound because you're right. It's everybody loves to win, and losing sucks.
Right.
And so when you're losing, right, it's just like how. So this is the question for you, is like, how do you change that mindset, right? Because you talked about earlier where the doctors were worried about you because you had this mindset, you wanted to go forward, you weren't going to let yourself go to that other place. And so many people just go right off that cliff and have such a hard time.
And then have to find their way back. Yeah.
Have to find their way back just to get to even before they set the big goal.
Right. Sure.
So what was your kind of thought process through that?
What was my thought process through that? Well, there wasn't much that I could do. Right. I couldn't get out of bed. I went from 175 pounds down to 125 pounds. Ooh. I couldn't get out of bed by myself. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do the stuff that we associate with being athletic, right? I couldn't work out. I couldn't do anything for the longest time. And the only thing that I had as an option was my mind. My mind was the only thing that could help me get better. And sort of the healing process of mind and body and emotion and all of that stuff, giving yourself the best opportunity to heal. So my strength came then from which is something I don't know that I was always mentally strong as I would have liked to have been. But in this moment I really was. I was mentally strong because I had to. For me, it's come down to this idea of sort of realizing possible.
Yeah.
And when everything's going wrong, to realize that there are two things that can happen. I can lose hope, or I can maintain hope. And if I maintain hope, it doesn't sound like a huge deal, but it really was. It really was. The huge deal was this idea of, well, I just need to maintain hope. And I don't understand all of what's going on here. I don't understand how it's all going to work out. But if I can maintain hope, I can give my body the best opportunity to heal.
Yep.
And that's, it was the most powerful thing that I've ever done in my life. And I think in my everyday life, I try to figure out how to make that a part of who I am.
Well, I mean, certainly you did that, and you did that very successfully. You've got 13 Paralympic medals, the Paralympic Hall of Fame, U.S. Ski Snowboard Hall of Fame, the founder of One Revolution Foundation, and, all these other amazing awards. So let's start with this is now looking back, right? You have all these, wonderful accolades, but it's really, you come across a guy, to me, is really understanding and appreciating the process, right? So, 13-time Olympic, it's incredible. So you just don't, do something and then you quit. So what was the first, big thing? So you're laying there, you've got the right mindset, you're going to get out of the wheelchair. What's the first thing that you needed to accomplish?
The first thing that I needed to accomplish. Wow. The first thing, it's getting out of bed.
Yeah.
Getting into the wheelchair. And the first time I'd been in bed for so long that your body changes, right? You've been lying down. And so then I'm sitting upright and I'm nauseated. My head is swimming. All the blood had drawn out of my face. I turned completely gray. So there's that part. And then there's learning everything new. I remember going to physical therapy and getting from the wheelchair to the mat, to the physical therapy mat. And And you think, and now I think, okay, well, that's not a big deal. But I'd gone from being as fit as I had ever been, to suddenly ridiculously weak. Trying to lift myself out of the chair. It felt like I was Velcroed to the chair.
Yeah.
And I had this little sliding board thing, and I had to figure out how to get onto that. And I don't think I actually even did it. I think the therapist really lifted me more than I did, and then I'm on the bed, and then I have to, or on the mat, and trying to figure out how to roll over. And you think, well, you just roll over.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is you cross one leg over the other to effectively create some momentum, and then swing your arms, and then with the momentum you can roll over, and so I thought, wow, this is so hard. And then let's sit up, and she said, well, what you do is you put your hands in your pockets and your elbows are out, and then you kind of like you push up a little bit and ratchet your elbows in, and eventually you're kind of sitting up. And I couldn't budge. I felt like I weighed 500 pounds. I was just glued to the mat. So starting from absolute zero, at least as far as mobility was concerned, to then all of this stuff that happens that you have to figure out, then also just getting strong enough. I mean, I did my first bench press lying on the mat. This was when I was getting stronger, and I went to sort of just stretch my arm, kind of behind my shoulder, and my hand is behind my shoulder, and I don't recognize that. I don't recognize, because I've lost all of the muscle, and I thought that's not even me.
Yeah.
But then I needed to return to my life. And so I was in the hospital for 2 months. It's much shorter right now. I don't know how people are dealing with it, because I wasn't really prepared to leave. But I went back to college after 2 months, went back to the spring semester. And that was the beginning of being back in my life, being back with my friends and
which
my
is probably
peers.
a lot of the healing right there.
It was the
right?
therapy. It really was. Yeah.
So where did you then put your eye on the ball and say, I need to get back on a ski and do this mono ski? And I've seen you go down the hill, and you're a fantastic skier. But I'm sure that first time out was a scary moment. Well, first of all, it's the courage of even going back out, and then you get over that mental hump, and now you actually got to learn how to ski on one ski.
I was lucky in a lot of ways. In the year before my accident, I saw a woman named Diana Golden, who was a single leg amputee. She had lost her leg to cancer when she was a kid, so she's what we call an above the knee amputee. Yeah. And in the vernacular, she's what's called a 3-tracker, because they have one ski and 2 outriggers.
Okay.
So hence 3 tracks.
Yeah.
And she showed up at a race where I was racing. And my first thought was, what's this one-legged woman doing here? But then when I watched her, she really was what we hope to be as athletes. That she didn't have time for excuses. Ski racing's a great sport for excuses, because if you're not fast, you can't blame it on anybody else, right? There's no goalie to blame or anything.
Yeah.
And she was like, look, I might be bad at times, but I'm going to put everything I have into it. I'm going to fall down. I'm going to get back up. And I saw her, and in a lot of ways, I think everybody in the race had this feeling of like, I want to be like her. I want to be an athlete like she is, as pure an athlete of, this is it. We put everything into it. If it works, we keep moving forward. If it doesn't work, then we keep moving forward too. And so I had her as a model beforehand, and I knew I wanted to get back into skiing. A friend of mine, while I was in the hospital, asked me if I would be in a documentary film on adaptive skiing while I was still in the hospital. I said, yes, I know I will ski again, because my friends and family, everybody I knew skied. That to me was recovery, if I could ski. And then when I went back to college for the fall semester, my coach called me into his office and he said, hey, I saw these guys skiing in mono skis out at Mount Hood during the summertime. You should do this. And I was like, yeah, I want to do it. And he said, well, we'll help you. We want you to continue as part of the team. We'll get you a mono ski. So the Friends of Middlebury Skiing bought my first mono ski for me. I stayed part of the ski. I mean, I was part of the team. I was falling over all over the place, but I was part of the team, actually captained the team my senior year, but went from, I think I did my first race within the first 2 to 3 weeks. And I knew that not only did I want to make the U.S. team and to be the best in the world, but in seeing Diana, I wanted to do things that people thought were impossible.
Yeah.
I wanted to stretch their imagination. And for me, that was a voice about skiing, but it was also a voice about the possibility for all of us, for hundreds of millions of people in the world with disabilities who in a lot of ways, as I said last night, are invisible because from the time we're little, we're taught not to stare at someone who looks different.
Yeah, yeah. I think it takes a village. You've heard this before. It takes a village to raise a family, right? And grow a person. And certainly, there's mentors that popped up, I'm sure, along your path. It sounds like your parents were very instrumental, but also this your coach at Middlebury, right? Not giving up on you, and not just like, well, he doesn't, his two legs aren't working full functioning anymore, so he's out. It's this way. How could he involve you and get you back in the game? I mean, that must have been, huge for you in terms of having somebody believe in that you can do it, you can get back out there and empower you in that way.
And what he did is he made it easy for me too. Yeah. He made it really easy. It was just, hey, you're going to go. And the guy who was the assistant coach that year would lift, because we were getting into the Ford Econo line vans or whatever. They're high up there. He'd lift me out of my chair and put me in the front seat and then pull me out of the front seat. And so, it became a team. I think it really became a rallying cry for the whole team. I became a rallying cry, and they made it easy for me, and they made it easy for me to be part of the team. But yeah, he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to, but for him, he said, there are times that you just want to do the right thing. There are times in your life where you're required to do the right thing, and this was the right thing to do.
Yeah, he stepped up.
Yeah, he really did. And it wasn't easy for him.
No,
made it harder for him, but yeah.
But that's just what we do in humanity, right? So now you're back in the game. You're going to college. You're the captain of the team. Your coach is helping you out. You've got your support. You're learning. You're getting your strength back in your arms and your back and everything else. Things are going for you, and you've turned the corner, right? So now, where did the Paralympics come in terms of okay, I can do this, and I'm actually pretty darn good at it. Where did that leap come?
So, I think that leap came from seeing Diana and thinking that she's a real skier.
Yeah,
this is legit.
Yeah.
Let's do this. But then so when I started, I figured, this is the athlete. These guys are going to recognize me. I go to my first race, and they'll go, okay, you might not be very good right now, but we recognize the potential, and so we'll name you to the team right now. They didn't. But and then I'll go to my first nationals, which I went to my first year, and they'd recognize and they'd name me to the team. They didn't. And so it was a bit of a progression. I had to earn it, but I knew from the very first that I would start racing again, that I would go to the Paralympics. I mean, that was my goal, was to make the U.S. team, to go to the Paralympics and to really be the best in the world. I mean, that was my goal, my simple goal. And I was not a cocky guy growing up, but to me, this was the single-minded focus of I will become the best in the world. And I think in my first nationals, I was sitting next to a guy who was in my class, and there are 3 classes of monoskiers, and I was in the most disabled of the 3. So basically have the muscles right underneath the sternum, corresponding muscles on the back, so not a lot of torso balance. There were guys in the other classes who were double amputees, had the muscles all the way down to their knees. There were guys who walked up and sat down in their skis. And I said to this guy, I'll be the fastest monoskier in the world. And he looked at me, he's like, no way. No way you'll ever beat those guys. And to me, it wasn't like a thing of question. There was no question at all. I was like, no, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I have to do. And this is the launching point for everything else that I will do. And I was... At that point, I was even further behind. But by the next year, when I made the ski team, I was still 30 seconds behind these guys. At 60 miles an hour, 30 seconds is a half a mile. Yeah. You're not even in the same race. They could stop for Cocoa and still beat me. And but that was the progression. And in Lillehammer in '94, in the downhill, I beat all the monoskiers in the world.
Is that right?
Beat everybody. Yep.
I had some buddies go to that Olympics, and they just had, it was just like a magical experience, right? Yeah. A tiny little ski village in the middle of nowhere, out in the world, and just incredible.
Oh yeah, all the kids, they bring the kids. It's not like they have strollers. They have the little sleds, the little beautiful wooden sleds that they're bringing the kids up, and they don't care. It's cold. It's like cold. This is what we do.
Yeah.
They're They were 4 or 5 deep, lining the course. It was amazing.
Yeah. So of all the 13 that you went to, what's your favorite moment of all those, those medals that you won and going down and beating everybody?
That moment of winning the downhill in Lillehammer probably was my favorite moment because it was a goal that people didn't think was possible, and that became about skiing. It wasn't about disability, and that to me was the shift that I wanted to create, that you could become a good skier, that you could figure out how to conquer your problem, right? Your whatever it is. I mean, you know, playing in the NFL, right? There are some guys who are gigantic, and then there are some guys who really are. You look at them and go, well, you're an NFL player. The guys who the security that they don't let these guys into the locker room. Right? Like, you're not an NFL player, but somehow these guys, these little slot receivers or something like that. You're like, wow, like what are you doing? And don't get killed out there. But those to me are kind of the cool people that you see, that they've figured out a way to be in a sport where physically that people wouldn't say that's what you should do.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. So you move on into your life, and in terms of how are you monetizing your lifestyle at this point? Are you subsidized by the Olympic Foundation, or how does that work?
Oh no, I'm so the way that I'm making my living is through my own creativity. I think it's I make my living mostly as a speaker. Yeah. So I do a fair amount of corporate speaking.
But I want to go back to when you were.
Oh, back then.
Yeah.
Oh, back then. No. So back then it was a matter of getting sponsors. I was lucky. I had some sponsors that came on board. So it was Swiss Army, a friend of mine. His father was the owner of Swiss Army, of watches and knives and stuff like that. And so they, through a foundation, supported me. Yeah, I was one of my teammates. His father worked at Kodak. And Kodak was my first sponsor, my first games. My coach talked to this guy, and I think they gave me like a $2,000 sponsorship. And I was couch surfing, and
every penny helps, right?
It really does. You know, I was just the $2,000. I felt like I was rich at that point. It's like this is amazing. So that's what I did. It was all sponsorship, and I never really got paid to train and compete. I got paid to make sense of my story. So even my sponsors, my big sponsor as I progressed was the Hartford Insurance Company. And it was, I wore their name on my helmet, but it was speaking to their groups, to their salespeople. It was bringing them into my media experiences. And that's essentially how I made a living, was taking what I did and making sense of it in a way that is more universal.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, and it was a great migration for you, transitioning from life after football, so to speak, right? From in your case, skiing all over the world, and that's one of the things that's been really challenging for a lot of NFL players. The system is way more tricked out now in terms of giving support to these different guys. There's an organization called the Trust. And, there's what to do after life and matching you with financial institutions and how to handle money and all this other stuff. But at the time, there wasn't. So for you, it wasn't the trust necessarily, maybe as organized, but they're saying, hey, if we're going to sponsor you, we want this for that. And you're good at it too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But it was, I didn't go through the depression while I was in the hospital, but I did after I retired. It was the identity. I'd been a world champion. But that's not who I am moving forward. And developing my voice and figuring out what I have to give, that it's not necessarily just a transactional business, that I don't speak for people to get paid, that there's a greater purpose to what I'm doing. I mean, obviously I like to get paid as well, but when at one point it felt like it was really transactional, that it was just, I'm here to give you the motivation of what I've done and help you feel better for yourself. But in some ways it felt like a deal with the devil. It really did. I mean, early on it felt like, why am I doing this? I'm just selling myself in order to get paid. And that was really hard. And what I've recognized, and that took me stepping back and looking at it and saying, no, there's an opportunity here.
Yeah, huge.
I mean, my wife said to me at one point, she said, well, you create ambassadors of change every time you speak to a group. And it's like, okay, when you're doing that and you realize that it's not for me, I'm trying to give a gift to the audience, then it makes a lot more sense. But sometimes it's a real challenge. Early on, it was a real challenge. That was the depressing part.
Totally get it. You're the vehicle.
Right.
You're the vehicle of change agent.
Right.
Right? So let's talk about your wife.
Yes,
How long have you been married?
We've been married for 6 years.
6 years. Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Met in our 40s. We were born in the same hospital outside of Boston.
Is that right?
Yeah. Methuen, Mass. Yeah, it was St. Bonaventure Hospital, and we didn't know each other back then. We didn't meet until our mid-40s.
So what kind of rock and inspiration has she been to you through this? She
is absolutely phenomenal in every sense. She works with Virgin Unite, the nonprofit arm of the Virgin Group. So Richard Branson and all that stuff, and is a driving force. Really, is what it comes down to. Is really run the organization, and so who is she for me? I remember early on when we were dating, we were at a supermarket or something, and somebody dropped something, and she dropped to the floor to pick it up like right away, like no conscious thought. Right. Kind of thing. It's just it's who she is, and I mean we're both on the road a lot, and she might tell you that I'm on the road more than she is, but I don't believe her. But she's on the road like 200 days a year, and she works so hard, but she's so passionate about what she does, about creating a better life for people. I mean, theirs really is about a triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit, and trying to figure out how they can really help people to live a better life, how they can help the oceans, how they can help resolve conflict, how they can do, and so she's just her passion and her commitment and her endurance is something that is mind-boggling to me. So I try to follow in her footsteps.
Now, does she travel with you to your speaking gigs?
She will come occasionally. It happens to be this. She came to this event because it's my birthday, so she wanted to.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. I know it keeps going.
Hey.
So she came to this event as well, and she came from. So what did she do? I think she was like this week. She was in London, then she was in New York, then she was London, then Nantucket, then New York, then she came here, and I think she goes back to London on Sunday. So it's
wow.
So it's one of those. So she came for the 3 days, and
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So the Dalai Lama celebrated you as the impacted the world by naming you the unsung hero of compassion. That's what it is. He named you the unsung hero of compassion in 2005. How does anybody even get connected with the Dalai Lama?
Good question. So I was one of 50 people that they celebrated.
Okay.
And it was through a nonprofit that a friend of mine has, a friend who's a winemaker. So friends, Dick and Ann Grace make wine. Grace Family Vineyard in Napa, actually St. Helena is where they are, and they do a lot of philanthropic work.
Love St. Helena.
Oh, it's great. It's absolutely spectacular, and their place is great. It's a tiny little vineyard, but it's a spectacular wine.
I love that.
And so they really did a lot of work with girls and women in Tibet, and became associated with His Holiness as a result of this, and had worked closely with him, and so they gave this award through him when he was coming to the U.S. And so I skied with Dick and Ann at one point at a fundraising event for the National Ability Center in Park City. They're one of the cult wines that came into this wine event called Red, White, and Snow. It's an amazing event. And I skied with them, and Dick said, well, we're going to give you this award. And I said, okay. I mean, this is 2 runs into it through the Dalai Lama, and I was like, okay, this sounds great. I mean, I love the Dalai Lama, amazing guy. Like, I'd sure, and just mind-boggling. The people who are doing it, and people who grew up in like dirt tent kind of things, dirt floored tents, and speak 12 languages. A woman there in our class was trying to eradicate female circumcision. It's like, I mean, they're just things that you go, well, those are really important things. Like, I won some ski races.
Yeah.
And being in the presence of His Holiness at one point was just, just to greet him, and you thought, I'm in his aura. Like, I'm just in this sort of corona of light of being here with him, and it's just this sense of happiness and peace and contentment, it was absolutely amazing. But as I received the award, I shook the Dalai Lama's hand, got the Katka around my neck, and then went and shook Dick's hand, and he said, "You realize you're just starting on this journey?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm acutely aware of it." And 5 years later, they brought me back to speak to the award winners, and I talked about that, and I had numerous people come up to me afterwards and said, I was ready to leave because I'm looking around and everybody is so amazing, and I'm not worthy of this. Yeah. And they said, thank you for telling me that story. And I realized that it's not necessarily for all of what I've done. It's for the approach that I have, who I am, and what I'm doing, what I'm going to do in the future as well. A responsibility in some ways.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I felt a little bit like that when I had to moderate a panel of these amazing superheroes yesterday. I'm like, what am I doing here, man? But anyways, that was that. So, okay, so about 3 years ago, this is actually my second time I'd been on Kilimanjaro. I was invited back to participate. I was actually in the first class with Chris Long, son of Howie. Yep. He started an organization called Water Boys, so I was in the first class of Water Boys. And we raised, I personally raised with my best friend Jim Mora, $50,000 to fund a well in the Serengeti for the people of the Maasai tribe. So it really touched our heart and our soul, just in terms of, again, for people who have relatively nothing, their happiness factor is like off the chart, right?
Right.
And so another one of your many accolades and accomplishments is climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. And so I want to set this up for you because I'm having a hard time understanding how this works, right?
What it looks like, yes.
Yeah. So going from first of all, for those who don't know, Kilimanjaro, from the ground floor to the very tippy top, 19,333 feet, is the tallest mountain in the world. Mount Everest is literally the tallest, but for where you start at 17,005. Right. So there's the differential, right?
From,
so that's what we're talking about.
From base camp to, or not even base camp, but from the gate.
From the gate
to the summit.
For the summit
is the greatest differential.
That's
of any
right.
mountain,
That's right. So for I've now done it twice, right? Yep. And so I've been up there, and so I totally understand how when you're in this powered wheelchair, that you could make it up to about 17,000 feet. And then as you go from 17 to the top, there's a lot of rocks going on in there, and there's a lot of sharp turns and twists and all this kind of stuff. Now, you did it, so I know you did it, and I'm asking you how you did it.
How did I do it? So first, the vehicle looked like a Mars rover, four-wheel vehicle.
Yeah.
Each wheel would articulate as much as 14 inches, so it had a rock crawler kind of thing. The wheels we used are designed for riding on snow during the winter time. So they're 4 inches wide, running about 2 to 3 pounds of pressure.
Yeah.
We geared down, so it was a regular traditional, hand cycle, meaning I'm pedaling with my hands, like you would pedal your bike with your feet. I'm pedaling with my hands, but I think one in the lowest gear, one revolution of the cranks was like 2 inches or something like that of forward motion.
Yeah.
So it was slow. It was a really easy gear, but when you get up on something really steep. So we pedaled through, and like you, I don't know what route you did, but we did Coca-Cola. We did the Marangu route, which is the most popular of the routes. There are huts along the way. Made it to Kibo Hut in 3 days, which is what everybody does. So Kibo Hut is about 15,500 feet.
It's fast.
And then what typically happens is what they do for you is they wake you up in the middle of the night, and you go and hike the rest of the 4,200 feet of vertical, 5K of distance in the nighttime to get there for sunrise, because it's the tallest freestanding mountain in the world. So sunrise is pretty spectacular as you're at the top of 19,340 feet, right? What you did over a nighttime, I did in 2.5 days. So the cone of the volcano, the scree field, 10 inches of pea gravel, effectively.
It's awful.
It was, and we put a sailing winch on the front of my vehicle so I could attach my pedals, and I could turn the sailing winch and pull myself up a fixed rope, because the vehicle is fixed axle rear wheel drive.
Yeah.
And so my weight was over it, but when it gets loose, then I was just digging a hole as I was going, which wasn't all that helpful. But the winch didn't work the first day, and so we put 8-foot long 2x8 boards down, and that was my traction, so that was keeping me from sinking in to...
So your support group is literally picking up these 2x2s, 2x4s, whatever, laying them down so that the tracks, now you're going up that way.
Oh, yeah. I was on
Wow.
the treadmill, effectively.
Wow.
These guys are just creating the treadmill. And
Wow.
Okay, 8-foot board. There were 4 of them. 4 boards. They just kept moving them along, and this is the way it worked. And so that's what I did in my first... So you're talking about... So the first day we made it to 17,500 feet.
Yep.
We camped in the middle of the scree field, past... Williams Point. So Williams Point is what? That's 5,000 meters, right? So forgetting that's like 16,000 something. Hansmeier Cave. This is where Dave, my guide, kept thinking, okay, well, we're going to stop at these points. And I blew past these points. And at that point, there was no way I was getting out of the rig for lunch or anything. It was like I'm just taking on board whatever I can, the goo, the chomps, the whatever it is as we're moving along. They made me drink a ton, because obviously that's part of how you're regulating the CO2, right? When you're at altitude, is that you're expelling the CO2.
Yeah.
So made it to 17,500. The winch did work the next day. Dave went down and fixed the winch, worked, and we made it to basically the bottom of Gilman's Point, where there's a boulder field. And Dave had told, actually not Dave, Bob Moore, who was the chair of my board, who had been a fraternity brother in college, said to me after I had this spectacular day, made it to 17,500 feet, thought I was completely done. I had failed, and I made it through. It was this out-of-body experience, and I thought, and in a lot of ways, I was riding on the power of people whose lives I was trying to affect. It was a goal that was bigger than me, myself, and I was riding on their power. If it was just about me, I think I would have been done. I don't think I would have made it, but I made it, and when I got out of the rig, he said, you're not going to be able to make it. We've been on this boulder field. You're not going to be able to get over. And of course, he backed it up in the middle of his statement. At the end of his statement, said, well, I mean, I'm sure you're going to be able to do it. I just don't know how.
Yeah.
So I'm lying there in the tent, and I thought, okay, well, I need to do this unassisted. And how can I do it? I said, well, maybe I can't do it unassisted, but I'll get out of the rig, and I'll do a wheelbarrow. I'll have Dave, my guide, carry my legs, and I'll walk on my hands up these boulders. I'd done this, like getting onto airplanes and going up flights of stairs and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, well, we'll just do this.
I'd love to. By the way, I'd love to see you in a wheelbarrow get onto a plane at Delta Airlines. That'd be awesome.
It's great, and I've often done it with the pilots. The pilot's like, yeah, all right, cool. This sounds great. Let's do it.
It's awesome.
And so it's kind of funny, but yeah, I've definitely done that. And actually, you can watch. I will often get onto a plane and I'll walk hand over hand on my arms and just kind of drag my legs back on the seats. So on the armrest, I'll often do that. And so when I went to Africa, they said, well, can we shoot you doing this? And I was like, and I was 42 rows back or something. So this one I had to, on my arms, get down in the galleyway, crawl across the galley, get back up. Yeah, I was like, and of course then I'm going 36 hours and I'm stinky and sweaty and all that stuff. But so I had this idea that I would do the wheelbarrow, but we got there and I didn't say anything about it. They started making plans to carry me, and I didn't say anything about it. And I worked with somebody recently, like a couple of years ago, so 8 years after. Monday is actually the 10th anniversary of the climb, the 30th.
Yep.
And this guy said to me, he said, so why didn't you say anything? And I had to think back on it, and I had 2 goals in some ways. One was to be the first unassisted paraplegic to make it to the summit of Kilimanjaro, to break the record, and really in a lot of ways to confirm that I was a superhero. And the second part was that the superhero had been the most limiting part of my life, that I was trying to act, I was trying to play the role of what people expected of me. And so it didn't allow me to fail, it didn't allow me to struggle, it didn't allow me to be human, it didn't allow me to be honest or vulnerable or any of those things. And so one of my goals, it seemed like, especially going back and reading my blogs, was to fail publicly so that I could separate myself from the superhero. So the crew, they carried me for 100 feet, which in the moment was abject failure. But as I look back on it, it was the greatest gift because it allowed me to be human. It allowed me to figure out where this doppelganger of a superhero ended and where I started. And it allowed me to approach my life in a way that I could find my own power. And I wasn't trying to live up to whatever other people thought I was.
Yeah. So for those who haven't been up there, it is steep, and it's a challenge. So I have. I'm just imagining this a little bit in my mind. So now you make the summit, you take the top, you hit that big green sign, right? And now you're in this 4-wheel rover machine, right? And what I'm just picturing is just like cowabunga, dude, right? As you're going down the mountain, right? I mean, were you just like flying, going down? I mean, how did you control that speed?
Well, I had full disc brakes on the vehicle.
Yeah.
And Dave actually didn't want me to go too fast, my guide, so he actually was bleeding one of the brakes. So it went from being a silver brake to being a black brake, I think, because it just heated up so much as we're going through. But yeah, that what took me 2.5 days took me 15 minutes to go down.
Yeah, I bet.
But we went down to Harambo that day, and so that first day was relatively easy getting down. But then afterwards, I was at walking pace from Harambo, from 12,000 feet down to the gate at 6,000 feet, right?
It's so bumpy.
It was so bumpy, and I had to figure out how to get over these rocks, and gravity helps. It's easier to go downhill on the rocks, but I also had to be really smart, and you get stupid up there too, right? The oxygen deficiency.
We had a few guys get really stupid on us. Oprah.
Yes.
Talk to me.
Okay, so I was actually not in studio with Oprah, which my younger self was really disappointed, because I was there because I was in People magazine. It was one of the 50 most beautiful people in People magazine. And in studio.
And by the way, that's why you're on this podcast, because you're one of the 50 most beautiful people.
Exactly. Well, we should be on television then, right?
Yeah.
But one childhood crush was actually there. Olivia Newton-John was in studio.
Oh, yeah.
That the Get Physical, all that stuff, and I was like,
Grease.
I missed it. I missed my opportunity to meet Oprah, but to meet Olivia Newton-John as well. So I did. I was living in Vail at the time, and they sent a crew out, and we did our segment there. They shot my segment there and then showed it. But I have not met Oprah in person.
President Clinton.
I have met President Clinton. Mm-hmm. President Clinton was a fun thing. A buddy of mine in college was his personal aide, and so before I went to Lillehammer, friends of mine from high school and college threw me a fundraising event, a black tie event. We did our processing at the I think it's at the Marriott right at Dulles there. So we flew in, did our processing, got our uniforms, all that stuff. I put on my tux, went over to Georgetown, and had 500 people do an event for me, which was absolutely amazing. My parents came down to it, all this stuff and everything. And they did testimonials from some people who couldn't be there. Like my middle school soccer coach couldn't be there, and so he did a testimonial, they put it up, and then the screen went blue as I'm about to talk, and the presidential seal came on. And President Clinton came on and wished me luck. And then I have to speak after this. I'm like, I'm just blown away. Like, the president just wished me luck. This is awesome. They did actually send me the outtakes of it, which were just hysterical, because he did it once. He's like, no, I can do it better than that. Let me punch this up a little bit. And it was hysterical. And then so we went back, Olympians and Paralympians, to meet the president in D.C. after the games were over. And I was waiting in line. I ended up at the end of the line because I was doing a newspaper interview for the small town newspaper where I'd grown up. So I ended up toward the end of the line, and I came in, and as I came in, President Clinton said to me, "We're really proud of you, man." He said, "Good to meet you, man. We're really proud of you, man." Yeah. And I'm like, the president just called me man twice in 2 successive sentences. Yeah. He looks like the president. He looks all stately, but he just called me man. And so it was really cool. And just that's one of those things you just never expect that you'll meet the president of the U.S.
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome. You've written some books, and interesting to me is that 3 of them have been children's books. And I'm not sure if this is which book this is. It's not about what happens to you; it's what you do about it.
So actually, that's the motto for my speaking thing with my name tags program, which is our educational program at the foundation.
Yep.
So it's not what happens to you; it's what you do. It's what happens to you. We do it kind of like, the kids don't realize this, but it's like the old Miller Lite commercial. Yep. Tastes great, less filling. Yeah. So I break up the room and I say, okay, you guys say it's not what happens to you. You answer with it's what you do. It's what happens to you. And they chanted like 4 times throughout the time. So that's that one. I published one children's book, which is called "Is It Lonely to Be a 4-Leaf Clover?" which is about a 4-leaf clover that hides what makes it unique and different. it's hiding the fourth leaf because it wants to fit in with all the other clovers
Yeah.
until it meets a dandelion. My wife is a big fan of dandelions, and because they're resilient and they'll grow where nothing else will grow and all this stuff, and so they fall in love, and it's very Disney, but the four-leaf clover becomes pregnant, and the question is, what's the baby going to look like?
A dandelion or a clover.
Exactly, and I did this for my wife for her birthday. And she's blonde, so is it going to look elegant like a yellow tulip or fortified like a yellow rose? And the end is that it looks like all of us, that we're as unique as a four-leaf clover and as bold and fierce as a dandelion.
That's awesome.
So that's one.
But you have no kids, right?
We don't have any kids. No, but I mean, I speak to, I'll speak to 60 plus schools this year, so that'll be 18 to 20,000 kids. So
I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do that. And then I did one based on a graduation speech that I did for Middlebury in 2011, which NPR put on the list of greatest commencement speeches ever. I thought that looked good on a book jacket. So this is a series of anecdotes that it's called Things I Want to Remember Not to Forget. Because I don't know about you, I learn stuff and then I forget it and then I have to learn it again. So it's a series of anecdotes that people can go to as a reference. I have a friend who's the sales director at the St. Regis. He said he looks at it every morning, looks at it and goes, okay, this is something I need to know. I did a presentation for Citigroup for their wealth management group, and he travels with it. The CEO travels with it. So it's a 7,200 word book. It's short, but it's something that travels really well, and it's a good reminder. And right now I'm doing the illustrations for the children's book On the Climb, which was the first one that I wrote, but I had to learn how to draw in the interim. So, and drawing still, it doesn't happen super, super quickly for me. I've had numerous ones that I've gone, that's not it. I've got to start over again. So I'm trying to get that done. This being the 10-year anniversary, I'm trying to get that done for this year, hopefully get it out for the holidays.
Well, we're going to give a big shout out to you for this particular podcast. It's the best podcast ever. Hopefully NPR will pick that up.
There you go. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And also being one of the most beautiful people on the planet. So it's cool. I'm like in this amazing presence right now.
Well, that was 21 years ago. So things change.
Well, time has done well for you. So
Thank you.
Where can people find you?
So people can find me 3 different places. One, the foundation is One Revolution. So it's one-revolution.org.
Okay.
And then my personal, my speaking and writing, where they can get my books and television website is Chris Waddell Speaking. So ChrisWaddell speaking.com. And then hopefully they'll follow me on Instagram too, which is Chris Waddell Living It, and there's an underscore in between each word. So Chris Waddell Living It with Chris _Waddell _ that kind of thing.
We're going to put all that stuff in the show notes, and then are going to get connected and all that kind of stuff. Listen, I'll end with where I started, which is I'm very grateful for you coming on and sharing your story. It's amazing. I'm always inspired by each one of these, and I always feel like I'm the one who actually gets the treat, the blessing, the gift for being on this side of the mic to listen to amazing stories like you and others that I've interviewed. They've gone through their own adversity. They've found their way, and not just found their way, but they're really thriving. And you're doing that. And I was inspired last night on your speech. So to that, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, and good luck on Everest too. This is the 7th of the summits, right?
This is the 7th. This is the big boy. So wait for the big guy at the very end, and then get up there and just, hopefully it's going to be a great experience. So I'm sure
good weather, big window of opportunity. That's what you hope for.
That's what fingers are crossed right now. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. He is Chris Waddell. Thank you. Hey, thank you so much for dropping in and listening to another amazing episode of Finding Your Summit. Truly incredible people doing spectacular things in life, and I hope you were inspired just like I continue to be. Look, I am super grateful that you came in and subscribed to this pod, and would be more than appreciative if you gave the show a ratings and review on iTunes. Trust me, it matters. And then also go share it with your friends, of course. Okay, until next week, go do something great, and remember, it takes a little more to make a champion. Bye. Hey, and thank you so much for listening to the Find Your Summit podcast. We are so glad to have you along for this journey. And if you enjoy the show, please tell a friend, share it on iTunes, spread it to the planet. We're looking to broadcast this to every person that is out there because, as you know, everybody has their own summit that they're going after. Okay, if you're looking to follow my journey, you can find that through my social links on markpattisonnfl.com. That's Mark, M-A-R-K, Pattison, P-A-T-T-I-S-O-N, NFL.com. So, until the next podcast, just remember, clear eyes, full hearts, and remember, it takes a little more to make a champion, so make it happen. Thank you. Bye.